Okay, now it's recording. So, good morning, everybody. I am Cristian Acosta, Agriculture Educator from Cornell Cooperative Extension, and I'm happy to be here again, this time with this class called Mastering Companion Planting, in Companion Planting in Your Garden. And let's see, what is this about? So today we are going to be talking about the principles and benefits of companion planting, the best plant combinations for repelling and also attracting insects, beneficial insects, repelling some of the pests and attracting some of the beneficial insects. Some techniques for integrating the companion planting in your garden layout, and some tips for the companion planting garden for the companion plant garden. Sorry. Okay, so why to be talking about this? Well, before I forget to mention before talking about this, if you have some questions, any questions that you have in the chat, you can send the question or feel free to unmute your microphone and ask about anything about the presentation. Okay, so now let's start with the importance of companion planting. Why is important to be talking about companion planting? Why to be thinking about this in our garden? So this is not that common. Sometimes we can hear about this, but for some people, probably it's the first time that you hear about that. So what is that? So companion planting, yeah, is putting together different plants, but why to do that? So it's on purpose, doing it on purpose just to protect, like I mentioned before, to protect our plants or attract some beneficial insects or repel some of the pests and diseases. So this is important. Why? Well, because it enhances the plant health and the yield by pairing complementary plants. It's a natural way to repel some insects and sometimes even some diseases, some spores, and improve the soil quality if the plants are healthy. So the flavor, especially if we're growing our own food, so the flavor is going to be better, and it also helps for the fertility of the soil. I'm going to be talking about that. You will understand about why just mixing some plants, it can be also beneficial for the soil and the microorganisms that they are living there. And also because with companion planting, it promotes sustainable gardening and reduces the need for the chemicals, for pesticides. So also you can be saving some money in this way, because if you don't have a lot of plants full of pests and you don't need to go and buy a lot of um, pesticides and a lot of insecticides, fungicides, synthetic pesticides, which is not that cheap, right? So you can be also saving some time and money, reducing the risk when you're applying all of these products. So let's move this here. Okay, so the principles of companion planting, we have 6 principles that we are going to be talking about this one. The first one is mutual benefit. So we have different plants and we have a benefit. So one is beneficial for the other one, and also for the soil, and sometimes even for environmentally. So it's a mutual benefit because we can, on purpose, the idea is to repel some pest, and that's probably the reason number one for doing something like this. And also enhancing growth. Some plants, they promote growth in another plant, and that's something that, okay, we can take that, nice for having this naturally. That's the point. We can have this when we are working on organic farming, for example, or growing our products, our vegetables, our herbs organically. And our second principle also is the pest control. That is what I was talking about. So just an example, the common and famous one, that is the marigolds, because marigolds, they help to repel some pests, some insects, and also nematodes in the soil. So that, like I mentioned before, you don't need to be applying a lot of pesticides, in this case insecticides or nematicides, nematicides to control these pests. Also for nutrient enhancement, so improving the soil fertility. So just an example, the legumes, just like we can see here, some peas and beans, they help fixing the nitrogen in the soil. So that's just one of the examples. And another principle is the spatial utilization, so the use of the space. So we have some system, probably you heard before about the Three Sisters planting system that is using three different plants. In that case, that is the pumpkin, corn, and beans together to use even in a small space. We can see here is a small space, and we can use wisely, that's the word, the space, and the plants, they benefit one each other. So in that case, just for that system is the corn, so it helps for the beans, like a support for the beans, and it's not like the beans is going to overgrow and uh, damage or hurt the corn plant. No, it's just naturally, and there's no problem about that. Competition for nutrients, for space, and in the bottom of the landscape, so we can see the pumpkins or squash. Or originally it was pumpkins, and once you can be harvesting three of them and using the same space, and it's not overtaking the nutrients from the soil, is helping actually with the soil health and also the microorganisms living in that soil. So it's just one example, because we can mix multiple plants, and we're going to be talking about those plants. Also, the principle number 5 is the biodiversity. So we can have multiple plants, and multiple plants, they attract multiple insects, and not all of them, they are a pest. Not all of them, they are bad. So we have that biodiversity, and we have an ecosystem. That's the idea, to create an ecosystem in our garden. So naturally, we can be controlling pests, we can be attracting pollinators, we can be attracting some beneficial insects, that some insects, they are going to control different insects and keep the populations in balance. Is not when we want to control some pests and diseases, we want to keep everything just in a level that is not affecting our produce, our vegetables, our fruits. It's not like in the traditional agricultural systems that the thinking is to kill and get rid of everything, every insect, every animal that is somehow affecting a little bit the plant. So it's more having naturally that balance. And the last principle is the physical support. So like I mentioned before, so for example, the corn, it helps, or it can be used to support the climbing beans. And it's natural, like I mentioned, it's not parasitic behavior, it's not a lot of competition for the sun and nutrients, like we can see, for example, with the some weeds, like this grape, some wild grape, that is totally different, is not a good companion planting. So the best plants combinations for repelling pests. So before start going into this one, we have companion plantings for repelling pests, and also, well, some diseases is not the same and not that easy with diseases, because especially fungi, and they are very like highly competitive, and they can be a little challenging to control. But there are some different options, like the class with organic gardening, where we were talking about some ideas for being applying some, like just the typical example, the neem oil is just one of the examples for organic prevention for diseases. But we have just putting plants together, not doing anything else. That's the plant, the companion planting. We can be controlling or repelling some of the pests, and also using this mix of plants to attract the beneficial ones. First, we're going to be talking about repelling some pests. So just one example, tomatoes and basil. The tomatoes and basil, so basil because it's a strong smell, it has these natural essential oils that helps to repel some mosquitoes, some aphids, and the tomato hornworms. So here we can see the example. And in the it's also nice to be having this mix because same time you are harvesting tomatoes and you can be harvesting also basil and using for kitchen recipes, and that's also nice to be eating and preparing your salsa, your sauce, tomato sauce with basil. So multiple benefits even for us. And out in the garden, it helps to repel these pests. For example, carrots and onions. So planting together, you can see here one example, some carrots and onions. The onions help to repel some of the flies and some of the flies that they are affecting the carrots, and also the carrots they help repelling some of the onion flies. So it's like I mentioned, this is the first principle, mutual benefit for both of them. It's not only for one, it's for both of them. Something like cabbage and dill. So dill, it attracts some of the beneficial insects, like some of the wasp that they prey on cabbage pest. So it's a natural control. In that way, with the dill, you attract some of the good insects, and those good insects, they are gonna be controlling the bad ones. So this just to make it simple, because there is no good and bad insect. It's just for us, right? For the gardener, for if you're growing your food. So it depends the behavior of the insect, if it's a good or bad one for you. But in this case, just to make it simple to understand, so yeah, there is some beneficial insects that they can be controlling the pest, the bad ones. So in that case, with the dill and cabbage, so you can protect your cabbage with dill, planting dill around, and also for some of the cabbage worms. The example that probably you know, it's very common and it's very a famous one, that is the marigolds. So they are not only beautiful because just for your landscape, it's beautiful to have your vegetables and some flowers at the bottom of the garden, and it looks nice, it looks beautiful, but also when you do it on purpose, just to repel some of the pests, so you have two benefits in there. So the marigolds, they emit like a scent. It's just natural oils that they are in the plant, and this is um, allelopathic effect. Allelopathic effect, that is when one plant it's just repelling different plants or some insects. In this case, these oils, this scent that helps to repel some of the like many pests, including nematodes in the soil. The nematodes, they are not flying, they are always in the soil. Some aphids, white flies, and well, multiple ones, but these are the common ones here in your state. And also protecting a variety of vegetables like the tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, and all that family, the solanaceae. All peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, and potatoes, and also like beans, for example, if you're growing beans, any kind of beans. So it's nice and it looks beautiful. For example, here you can see the marigold in this picture, the marigolds and some tomatoes growing in there. So it's a nice way, especially with that family of plants, the solanaceae, because they get everything. So it's easy for a tomato plant or eggplant or peppers or potatoes, it's easy to get any disease or pest. So always it's a little bit challenging, and you are trying to work with the pests and diseases for the tomatoes. So if that is one of your concerns, if you want to grow tomatoes, there you can have some beautiful option like the marigolds. Now, some options to repel. Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm still talking about repelling. I think we were changing to the next one. Sorry about that. So yeah, we continue with repelling pests. with this combination, this companion planting. So for example, cucumber and nasturtiums. So this flower, this beautiful flower, you can plant that together, and the flowers, they repel some cucumber beetles and also attracts the aphids, because you can see the colors. Some of the insects, or most of the insects, they are attracted by the colors, right? So we can make those insects go to the nasturtiums and not being affecting your cucumbers. Also, like peppers and marjoram. So marjoram is this plant. It's nice, and it has a strong smell. So usually you can see that some of these plants, that they are good to be working with the companion planting. They have some natural scents, natural oils, and it smells. For some people, it smells like it's too strong, and some people love the smells of these plants. For example, basil and the marjoram. Um, those are nice for me personally. That I like that smell. So in that case, with the marjoram, that enhance the growth and flavor of peppers. Now, this is a disclaimer about enhancing the growth of the plant, of the peppers. And this is still um, on research projects, and it's not 100% proven, but just by experience, and by experience for many gardeners, and they report that they can see that when they plant these two ones together, the peppers and marjoram, uh, it seems like the marjoram, it helps the growth and promotes growth in the peppers. So just to have that disclaimer, they are still studying like scientifically why it can be that possible. Probably because if the peppers, they are not fighting a lot with I say fighting some plants, it means when the plant is fighting, not physically, it's just when they have to be activating the genes, these genes, to protect the plant, to be like active and protecting the plant. If they are not doing that, so they can just keep producing nutrients and producing more of the fruits, in this case peppers, and keep growing healthy, instead of being taking nutrients and taking that plant energy to be controlling or being activating these resistance genes for pests and diseases. So that's probably what I think about this enhancement. And about the flavor, of course, same time. So if the nutrients, they go to the fruits and they grow healthy, so the flavor is going to be better, right? So let's see what they have in probably months, probably a couple years, when they keep studying, like why is that happening. But in the meantime, you can be working with peppers and marjoram and trying this by yourself, and you can see the benefits of these two plants. And about repelling some insects, some pests. So you can be repelling aphids, spider mites, and some white flies from the peppers. So that's nice. And now the next example is with spinach and radishes. So this is one of the mutual benefits also for yourself, because you can be harvesting both, or just using one, like um, crop trap, so something that the insects can go there, or something that, well, it depends about what affects the most your garden. So if you have always problems with white flies or with different insects, so you can be trying some of these plants and just putting them together. So for this example, spinach and radishes. So the radishes, they help to repel some of the leaf miners on the spinach, and some of the pests from the spinach. And something nice is that you can, yeah, naturally attracting the pest to the radishes, or the radishes can just help to repel them. It depends about what pest, right? Um, and then you don't eat usually. You don't eat the radishes leaves, so you need is just the radish. And when it's about timing, so you can be timing the companion planting, so you can be harvesting both, harvesting spinach and be harvesting the radishes, and you can be eating same time, uh, and having that benefit for yourself, for your kitchen, for your recipes at home. And Another example, so the squash and nasturtiums, this name, and nasturtiums. Okay, so here we can see this example, the flowers. So they look also they look beautiful in the garden, and these nasturtiums, they help repelling some of the squash insects, squash bugs, and attracting some pollinators because of the colors, right? You can see these beautiful colors, so it also helps to attract the pollinators, that we also need the pollinators to have some squash. This also can be used for similar plants, so like squash, like cucurbits, squash, um, any kind of squash, pumpkins, zucchinis. So it doesn't matter if it's green zucchini or yellow zucchini, just zucchinis, squash, even cucumbers. When the cucumbers, well, they are climbing, but with this plant, with the nasturtiums, you can have that benefit for these crops. So these are nice ways that you can be using here in New York State. Of course, we have thousands of companion planting methods, techniques, different examples for all around the world. But these examples that I'm putting here, these ones and these ones, it was research for New York State, for this weather, for these areas. So you can be using this if you're watching this recording or this class in a different part of the world or different part of the US. So it depends about your local climate, the weather, what plants you're growing around there. So you can be looking for this information, companion planting for radishes, for this plant, for different plants. Okay, so now it's not only about repelling some insects, it's also to attract beneficial insects. So you can be planting together, for example, carrots and onions. And the onions, they help repelling the carrots, like we can see here. So carrots and onions, we had some for repelling some pests, but also we can have um, carrots and onions to repel some of the pests. Oh, sorry, it moves again. And now carrots and onions also to attract the beneficial insects. So we repel some of the pests, but we also um, can be attracting some of the beneficial insects. And well, okay, that they attract some of the common garden pests. I already mentioned this. Sorry, just some of these slides, they look similar. Okay, so the second one that you can be using for attracting beneficial insects is the marigolds and tomatoes, like I mentioned before. So it's not only repelling some of the bad insects, also attracting the beneficial ones that they can control and other insects, and attracting some of the bees and some flies and wasps that they can be, well, mostly bees and flies, some flies that they can be pollinators. They can be helping your flowers because they are pollinators. And the yarrow, so this nice beautiful flower here, and that it looks just like a weed. So the yarrow, if you have some of that around, just allow it to grow in the garden, or you can plant some in the garden for mostly if you are growing herbs. So that's a nice one for herbs because you can see how beautiful it is and it's attractive for the insects. So you can be attracting some beneficial insects for pollination and for pest control. For example, the ladybugs, and if you attract ladybugs, they are gonna be eating a lot of aphids in the garden because they are really good controlling aphids, and you can be attracting the parasitic wasp that they can be putting the eggs. That's the parasitic effect when they are laying eggs inside of the insects, the like I call the bad ones, the pests. Um, and we can be controlling that, having that natural control, that biological control, that's the name, and also some predatory beetles that they can help to control another beetle or another insect. So planting the yarrow, it enhances this habitat. It promote that shelter and that habitat for the beneficial insects with the herbs, mostly with herbs. So now sunflowers, they are beautiful, so you can have something beautiful in the landscape every day. The sunflowers moving and the cucumbers growing them together, so we have that beneficial about attracting the bees and the pollinators that we need to get our cucumbers, right? So if we don't have the pollinators, probably you will have a lot of leaves and not a lot of cucumbers. So we need the pollinators, and the sunflowers, they are perfect. There is no competition between both of them, the cucumbers and the sunflowers, and we can be attracting the pollinators, and also we can be attracting lacewings. And the lacewing, well, I didn't include a picture here. They are really good controlling different insects. They are used for biological control. So that's a nice one. And some predatory beetles that they are going to be eating some insects around the garden and not eating your cucumbers. Another example is the buckwheat and brassicas. So brassicas is all of the plants like the cabbage, the broccoli, cauliflower, and just in general, also the small ones, I forget the name, the Brussels sprouts. You can be planting buckwheat around, and that has multiple benefits. So it includes about attracting the beneficial insects for pollination around your garden, also to attract the parasitic wasp that they are going to be controlling different beetles and different insects that if you have been growing the cabbage in the past, you know that there is a lot of insects, a lot of pests that they like to land in the cabbage and be eating a lot your cabbage. So when you plant or you put around the buckwheat, that helps to attract these insects that they are going to be keeping the pest populations in check. Another example, sorry, is the alyssum and the lettuce. So it's not only beautiful. So for most of these ones, you can see that it's beautiful. So that's is a double benefit, beautiful for your landscape, and also getting these benefits. So it's perfect and it's natural. So that's what I like from this topic. So with the alyssum and the lettuce, when you plant the sweet alyssum, it attracts the hoverflies, which they are good controlling some aphids in your lettuce. So that's also a nice one. For the lettuce, well, you can be thinking about also having like the sunflowers or buckwheat, but remember that the lettuce, they don't grow a lot. So sometimes for plants like for example, the buckwheat, they can provide some shade. So now there is a competition for the light. But with alyssum, it's same. It's not too tall. It's not a tall plant, so it's not gonna grow above and provide shade for the lettuce. So that's why it's a nice companion planting for the lettuce. Another example that we have is the cosmos flowers and the beans. So any beans, so green beans, black beans, any beans that you have, because the cosmos, they attract, also they help to attract beneficial insects because of the colors of the flowers. Also it attracts the pollinators, so double benefit. It attracts some parasitic wasp and some predatory beetles. And yeah, also when we attract these insects, we are controlling also the aphids when you have problems with the aphids in the garden with the beans. You can be also, if you have aphids, you can be also using the alyssum. So these flowers, they don't grow, they are not too tall, and you can be using for the attracting the insects to control aphids. So I want to mention something here, and is that we are talking about helping to control or to keep some population of aphids or some pests just in check, just not getting rid of all of them, but just trying to repel those ones. And it's not same like applying a product. It's just like a prevention method, and it's beautiful, and it's just to have some benefits for the soil too. But it's not using these plants just to control when you have actually an infestation of aphids or some beetles or some potato bugs or any like an actual infestation of a pest. So just to um, have that clear, this is just when you are planning your garden and you want something beautiful and having that benefit. So okay, we can be going for that. The second step, it will be the organic prevention. So some preventive products, like we talked in the class last week, and is using again that example of the neem oil um, or horticultural oil or some insecticidal soap, that they are natural ones, organic ones, and you can be using this as a preventive method. If you have a strong infestation, some very competitive pest that is, even with this prevention, is still eating your plants, so now you go for the IPM and pest control, just to have these steps. Okay, so now that I mentioned this, let's go with the next example, that is lavender and eggplants. So with lavender, it's beautiful. We have that nice smell, and it helps for you because it attracts the pollinators and beneficial insects. And same time, we are controlling. In that case, with these beneficial insects, they are controlling some of the aphids and some of the white flies that usually they are associated with the eggplants or tomatoes. They are the same family: tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, and potatoes. Just a couple examples. So you can be putting lavender, planting lavender around. And same, there is not a competition or allelopathic effect that is going to affect the eggplants or the tomatoes or the potatoes. So that's something nice that you can be using. And what time we have? Okay, so we are good with time. And now we are going to be talking about integrating the companion planting into your garden layout. Because, okay, now, yeah, you learn about the effects, and now you have some ideas about what plants to be putting in your garden, if there is still some time this year or for next season. But how to do it, or some ideas, like give me some ideas how to be integrating that in my garden, especially when you have small gardens. So it doesn't matter if you have some small gardens or not. Oh, this is if you want just to take a screenshot right now, I'm still working on the handout for this one, so it's going to be available soon in the Cornell Cooperative Extension website, Allegany County, CCE Allegany County, in the gardening section. So I'm gonna be posting the handout with this. I was just working on this recently, and is the companion planting chart. So you can be, for example, if you want to grow some lettuce, so you can see that you can be putting the lettuce together with the alyssum, and then also with broccoli, carrots, with cauliflowers, with cucumbers, with dill, with garlic, with nasturtiums, these beautiful flowers, and with peppers, with sage. Is also, sage is one of the plants that they work. It doesn't matter, you plant sage with vegetables, with the flowers, with different plants, and they work very, very good. They work well. And so for these ones, like sage and thyme, you can be planting sage and thyme with whatever you want to be growing, and it's nice to help also to repel some of the insects because there's strong smell that they have. Also, you can see some red spots here, and it's like, what's that? So it's when it is not a good idea. So for example, the garlic and beans, because actually some pests and mostly pests, some insects, some of these pests, they can be affecting both of them. So the beans insects, the beans pests can be affecting garlic, and the garlic pests can be affecting the beans. So in that case, these red spots is when not good idea. It's not a good idea to plant these plants together. So in that case, just another example, like the peppers and beans, just both plants, they attract a lot of pests, so we will need something way different than that. So this will be available soon in the CCE Allegany County website in the gardening section. You will find the handout with this topic, companion planting. So now some ideas that you can be doing this on your own if you have some time and just pencil and some notebook or even online, however you want to prefer. So you can be doing something like this. So just for example, here well, this is a different area, so probably a warmer area. So some corn and amaranth, some cucumbers and around dill, some beans, squash. So yeah, you can still be growing some of these ones around here. And Brussels sprouts. So here you can see the layout of your garden with some stepping stones or just a path in your garden with some mint. Okay, so probably you ask like why I didn't include mint, because mint is also nice. The natural oils, it's nice and it also helps to repel some insects, or it works also like crop trap, so the insects go to the mint and not to the plants. The problem with the mint is that if you want to use mint, just try to always, or try not always, put it in a container. So in a pot, or so if we are out in the garden, you will think, well, I want to put it directly in the soil, but it's not a good idea because mint is invasive. So you can have a problem later because mint can overtake and it keeps growing and growing and growing. So it can be invasive. So if you want to use mint, that's the advice. Just be careful. Just put it in a pot, in any container, and just be careful about not allowing to keep growing and taking the space later. Or the marjoram, you can see here, chives. So chives or onion, they have similar effect. This with the natural compounds, the natural oils in the plant. And with asparagus, it also helps, like here, the marjoram and chives, they help to the asparagus and the tomatoes. So also with the cabbage, so you can have some basil. So you can see how strategically you have some of these plants in between multiple crops. And they can be a benefit for not only one, but 2 or 3 crops that you're growing there. So this is just one idea, one example, one idea that you can have for your garden. This is the Three Sisters plus, because we know we have the Three Sisters system, that is the corn, beans, and pumpkins or squash here. So we can have that in the middle together using that space. But it's Sisters plus because we are using way more than that. So they are in the middle. That's like there right in the middle, the number one, the main crop in the middle. And we can have also some potatoes, and you can see around garlic, pepper, chili pepper, some of these peppers, mostly same family. You can see a cucumber, tomatoes, well, cucumbers is not the same family, but tomatoes and peppers, a lot of peppers. And this also helps for crop rotation. So we have all now a new benefit, crop rotation. You can be rotating in your garden, and that helps for your soil health. So it's nice for the soil. Also the kitchen garden. So everything that is produced here, when it's directly for cooking. So if you want to be producing like the arugula and sage, so you can see here one of these examples. So we can have some microgreens and arugula, and here some lettuce and some lettuce and some carrots. And in between, you can see that here we can have rosemary. So rosemary is another plant that I didn't include in these examples, and I'm gonna mention in why. But also helps a lot to repel insects. So now, same with the mint, it's not invasive, but if you want to go for rosemary and using rosemary for companion planting. Take in mind that rosemary, it also have that allelopathic effect. So as you can see just out there, around the rosemary, usually nothing grows around. Even the weeds, they are not growing around. So sometimes rosemary have that effect. So it's like natural allelopathic effect to that prevents some plants around from growing. So if you want to be using rosemary, just give it the space. It doesn't like to be around many plants. So in that case, you don't want to be putting the rosemary and just right there next to the rosemary, put in the tomato or any other plant, because probably the rosemary can be affecting the growth of that plant. So it's nice, but just give it a space, a short space, not together, not very together. That's the only thing about rosemary, because other than that, it's wonderful. It's a hardy plant, is taking care of many insects around, and it doesn't attract any diseases neither. It's hardly to see a rosemary plant with some some fungus or some nematodes or some disease. It's very strong one. You can be using that one. So in between, just that's the only like disclaimer to be using rosemary, and you can be in between putting some, for example, chamomile and the rosemary, sage. Sage is wonderful with any crop to be repelling some of the insects. Here we can have, for example, the kale, the Swiss chard, the broccoli, and we have some of these plants that we mentioned before in between. So how to do this and where can I find this? So that's probably your question right now. So I cannot recommend exactly like some brands or some software that you can be using this, but if you Google it, companion planting chart, or companion planting apps, companion planting software, so you will find some options, some of those for paid, but most of there are a lot for free. And you can be creating your own ones, or you can be downloading these examples. For example, these ones. Here is the source. Well, here down here is the source, and it's not. I didn't create these ones, and you can download these ones. It depends how big is your garden, if it's a square foot garden, if it's a bigger garden, about the season. Some of these softwares, they ask you about the climate. So if it's a cold, medium, or just warm environment, for what season, if you want to be growing for the a fall garden, summer garden, a winter garden. So it's giving you these examples also for indoors. So that's nice. There's a lot out there, and I invite you to just, if you have some time, Google it and keep reading. And you can see even in this website, Pinterest, you can find a lot of these charts, these pictures, these images that you can have some ideas, a lot of ideas from these apps or these websites. This is another example, the community garden. So here we can have a nice area where people can be just around, hanging around. We have some flowers around here. So here, for example, for these flowers, we can be implementing or planting there the nasturtiums, the flowers, to help repelling some of the insects and attracting beneficial ones, and having some of the here some like watermelon, cantaloupe, and melons, and some of the flowers. So with the flowers, we can include these nice beneficial flowers. So we can have multiple crops in here, or just ornamental plants, but just placing them in the right place. And if you know that you have flowers that they are affected by aphids or by some beetle, so okay, now what plant can I use with the ones that I was talking before? What plant can I be using for that? So probably, okay, I'm gonna be growing some cabbage, not to eat, probably just for the beautiful cabbage, just ornamental. But always is affected by the aphids and by these beetles. So in that case, okay, I can be planting the nasturtiums and I can be planting something around it, and it's looking nice, looking beautiful, and naturally controlling the populations of the insects. So yeah, go around and look for the ideas. There is a lot. These are just few examples, few ideas for the layouts. So, or you can create your own ones. So that's also nice. You can have on Excel, just for example, or any paper, and have some grid, and then um, planting and trying that year and see how it goes. If something happens, so you know, and it's nice to have a gardening journal. So every season you know what to do, what not to do, and especially because the weather, we have some microclimates, so it's not the same. It's not the same, and some of these methods probably is not gonna work for your neighbor or for someone else, even in the same area here in New York State and upstate New York. So try and keep the record of that. Now, I was talking some ideas for the seasons. So what to grow in what season. So for this succession planting, if you want to be growing early spring to summer, so go for one example, the radishes and carrots. And so the radishes, you can be planting the radishes first, and then because they grow fast, right? While the carrots, they take some time. Or same time, you can be it like I mentioned before, you know your plants better in your place. So if you know, like, oh no, they grow fast in this area because it's sunny, because you can have a better environment and they always grow fast. So, okay, if carrots and radishes, you can go same time. If not, so you can plant the radishes first, and they can be harvested before the carrots they start taking more space, because of course they will keep growing and taking more space. Lettuce and spinach. So you can plant the lettuce early in the season, so early spring, um, because they like these cold temperatures, right? So you can see the lettuce, they don't do very well in the middle of the summer. They don't like that very hot environment. They prefer something cold. So you can plant this early in the summer, no, in the spring. And when it starts getting warmer, so you can start planting your spinach and have that benefit, because at that point the lettuce is going to be growing when is the moment when the insects, they start coming and affecting, eating your lettuce. So the spinach is going to be there and you will have this benefit. When it's the middle of the spring, so mid-spring to late summer, go for the peas and beans. You can plant the peas first, because also the peas, they like some cold environment, not very cold, but still some cool environment. And the beans, they like hot. So in that case, you can be harvesting some of the peas while the beans, they are growing and taking more space. And also the peas, well, both of them, they help fixing nitrogen in the soil. But the peas, if you start first the peas, they help fixing that nitrogen that the beans are going to be using later. So they both help. Also for the cabbage and dill, so that you can plant early the cabbage because it takes more time and it also likes that cool environment. And after harvesting, so you can plant the dill, which is going to be attracting these beneficial insects, and it's going to be helping for different plants in the garden later in the season for the summer ones, and summer and fall plants. So for summer to fall, you can be using tomatoes and basil. They love heat, so no problem about that. And you can plant the tomatoes in the late spring. You can start indoors if you want, starting the plants of tomatoes indoors during the spring, or if you just want to go and get the seedlings in the greenhouse, so you don't need to start that early. Just wait for the season and go and buy your plants. And for the tomatoes and basil, put them together and you have multiple benefits and be harvesting both of them. And also that's delicious to be growing and having both of them same time. The cucumber and radishes, so you can plant the cucumbers early in the summer and then interplant with the radishes, and the radishes, they grow faster and they mature quickly than the cucumbers, and they can be harvested. You can be harvesting these ones before the cucumbers. For the late summer to early fall, so when it starts getting a little cooler, um, you can be planting spinach and garlic. So you can plant the spinach in the late summer for a fall harvest about the spinach, and then planting the garlic. So you're not gonna have garlic soon. You just plant the garlic in there in the same spot, and you can start harvesting the garlic for the next season, the next spring, summer. Now the beets and lettuce. You can start the beets in a late summer, because also beets, they don't like too hot. When it's too hot, they prefer cooler environment, and also the lettuce. So when they mature, they are growing. Um, you can be harvesting the lettuce and also some beets late in the fall, even beginning some of the winter, because they can tolerate some of that cold environment. And from the fall to winter, you can have together plants like the kale and peas. So they tolerate cold environments. So before the first frost, you can be planting this. You can plant the kale in the early in the fall. And when it just keep growing and it keeps growing, and then the temperatures keep going down and getting cold, you can plant the peas. So like snow peas, just one example, and they can be harvested before that first frost, before we have a lot of snow. And just one example for these winter companion plants. So now just we have a couple minutes, some tips for successful succession planting. So always plan ahead. There is nothing wrong if you just want to go out and try some of these companion planting, some of these plants, and just now you can go and try. So okay, for example, if you're growing tomatoes right now, go and get some basil plants and put them around the tomatoes and see what is the difference, especially if in the past you were having some problems with pests, some of these pests in tomatoes. Just go out and try. There's nothing wrong with that one. But if you can, just plan ahead with this information. You can be painting or working on your garden layout, thinking what are you going to grow later in this summer, in the fall, in the winter, or for the next season. And always plan ahead. So it's nice to have that something planned about the timing. So how much is going to take for the radishes and for the cabbage and for the lettuce, for the tomatoes to grow and to harvest. So you can be, okay, I need to start first this plant and then the other plant. This plant is not happy with the cold environment, so I know that I need to plant ahead. And in that way, it's going to be a successful companion planting, because even when they are really good plants and nice plants, strong, and they have that mutual benefit in applying these principles, if the plant is not happy, if the plant is just weak because it's not the right time of the year, because it's not the right environment for that plant, is not going to work. And if the plants are weak, they are going to be susceptible to any pest. So now you have two plants that is supposed that they work together, having mutual benefits, but both of them with pests and diseases because they are weak. So that's nice about the timing. Also, soil fertility. So the soil health. When you have a healthy soil, you have healthy plants. So if you don't know how is your soil, how is it doing, so you can take a sample and send to the cooperative extension office and have a soil testing, and you can be applying the fertilizer, organic fertilizers or synthetic fertilizers, just to keep your soil healthy. And that's something nice when we are talking about also the crop rotation, because with crop rotation, we can be also helping with the soil health and the microorganisms living in there. Just like this example with the peas and the beans and these legumes that they help to um, fix fix that nitrogen in the soil, and it promotes also the growth of some bacteria in the soil that it helps for that nitrogen cycle. And also you can be using quick growing crops. So interplant fast maturing crops like the radishes and the lettuce and spinach between a slower growing plants like the carrots or some beets, the tomatoes, something that is going to be longer growing there in the garden. So in that case, you can be growing something fast and having that fast benefit, and even having um, multiple harvests. So if you grow radishes, you know that they take some time. You can be plant while they are growing. You can be starting a new a tray with radishes. So when you harvest the ones that you want to be taking, you can put more plants in there and keep growing and keep harvesting and having that mutual benefit for your plants and for yourself, for your kitchen. So, okay, we have just a few minutes if you want to. You have some questions right now. If not, you know that always you can send me an email or call in Cornell Cooperative Extension, and we are always happy to help. If there are some questions, feel free to ask in the chat or unmute your microphone and ask. Because yeah, we have like 1 or 2 minutes if there is some questions. If not, it's okay.
Cristian, is there active research going on at Cornell about, backyard garden scale type companion planting? Do you know of? I mean, I know they tend to sometimes they'll serve the farmers, the big, commodity producers, and they'll make experiments with that and do field days and all that. But I don't think I've ever heard of Cornell sponsoring, I mean, at university, sponsoring small scale backyard farming type experiments.
Yeah, right now I haven't heard about companion planting research. It's mostly the need, what the local farmers and producers they need, or even home growers, what they need. Mostly right now is pest control. There is a lot about pest control, pollinators, attracting pollinators, the shelter for pollinators, how to attract and preserve and offer that shelter for pollinators, and mostly pest control. Because now with the changes in the environment, in the climate, we can feel that something is changing. In the same way, pests a lot. They also change, they also adapt. And that's mostly the focus of the research. I haven't heard right now. It's also about the grants. So probably at some point, yeah, there are going to be some more research in this area, because it's also a natural way to prevent. It's like the first steps that we can be using to prevent some of these pests and diseases. Like I mentioned, mostly pests. I mentioned at some point diseases, but you can see that here I was focusing more in the insects, because it's just few about diseases. But just an example, the stinging needle also is not proven scientifically right now. It's still on research. Like a stinging needle, when you plant stinging needle close to tomatoes or different vegetables, it seems to help about protecting different plants around from
It's an antifungal. Yeah.
exactly, from some diseases. So it works like a natural fungicide somehow. Some of these probably oils that the plant has, so around something growing around the stinging needle, usually they don't have a lot of diseases growing in these plants. So that's something nice. But other than that, so still, like I mentioned, is some challenging. So if you want to protect your plants from especially diseases, it will be more like organic control, like using some oils, natural oils, neem oil, insecticidal oils, or some different organic sprays, sometimes home remedies when they are allowed. It depends. For example, in your state, they are not allowed to be spraying the home remedies. You do it under your own risk, for something that you can be applying naturally for the plants. Yeah.
My battery's about to run out.
Okay, no, yeah, and we are on time, so we need to also, we have 1 hour already. Anytime, you can contact the cooperative extension office. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next class. I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Yeah, I'll see you when